Welcome to Illuminati Silver. We tell you the truth about silver. Today is Wednesday, the 10th of November 2021, and we're producing our Wednesday morning gold and silver price update, forecast and daily news. With CPI figures due out in the US today, we take a look at what is happening to gold and silver prices and the value of the US dollar. Welcome to Illuminati Silver. It's Wednesday, the 10th of November 2021 at 9:34 a.m. Weather today. It's picturesque with stratocumulus clouds. Fascinating to watch. Yes, we have a cloud layer base, multi-layered clouds, giving us a picturesque view of the sky and relatively calm weather. Now, we could say that the news headlines today are picturesque in that we now have European gas prices slumping as Russia finally increases supply. Good news at last, perhaps. European natural gas prices slumped to the lowest in more than a week as Russia is gradually delivering the boost in supplies that President Vladimir Putin promised. And you may notice that in our more recent videos, we highlighted the fact on Monday that Putin reneged, or at least those delivering the gas reneged in providing it. Looks like it's being solved now. Benchmark Dutch futures fell more than 10% after flows via both Ukraine and Poland edged higher on Wednesday. Putin said late last month that Gazprom would refill its European storages after finishing Russia's domestic stockpiling campaign on Monday. Good news. Also, interesting news. Stocks. Futures steady ahead of inflation report. Is it going to be good news? Because we have inflation due anytime soon. Stocks and equity futures were steady Wednesday as investors awaited a key US report on consumer prices to assess the risk of tighter monetary policy. Treasury yields climbed. In Europe, value sectors such as energy and banking gained, while consumer companies and drug makers trailed. Contracts on US gauges were steady after the S&P 500 index fell for the first time in 9 days. Tesla Inc. gained in European trading after its worst sell-off since September 2020. BBC Business News. M&S, that's Marks & Spencer, warns of supply chain costs as profits surge. Shares in the high street chain soar 20% on a sales rebound as recovery from COVID restrictions continues. Now, we've been listening to headlines of how costs are rising so dramatically and consumer spending in the UK is so poor, and yet one of our major chain stores is making money. Marks & Spencer says it's planning for significant increases in supply chain costs owing to worker shortages. The retailer has forecast costs will rise during the rest of the financial year and be steeper again in 2022-23. M&S bounced back to make £187.3 million in pre-tax profits in the 6 months to October, compared with a loss of £87.6 million for the same period last year. Food sales increased by 10.4%. Now, for those who may have never bought food from Marks & Spencer, we highly recommend it. It's expensive, but frankly, it's some of the best. While its clothing and home division's full-price sales rose by 17.3%. Steve Rowe, M&S chief executive, said the hard yards of driving long-term change are beginning to be borne out in our performance. Talking about performances, well, judge rejects Trump bid to block release of records. And the judge produced in their summary winding up, presidents are not kings. The judge ruled, adding the incumbent can decide what documents to release. What else is here? Harry says he warned Twitter ahead of the Capitol riot. And I think that's basically it in terms of investor news on the BBC. However, in Reuters, investors await Evergrande's overdue $148 million payment as debt woes grow. Whilst we thought this was over, it's now coming back. Cash-strapped China Evergrande Group faced a Wednesday deadline for making an offshore bond payment, while a credit rating downgrade on another property firm added to mounting concerns about a liquidity squeeze in the sector. So let's not forget this. It's still hanging in the balance. What's not hanging in the balance is the dollar index. We said yesterday when it dipped below 94, it'll only be a day or so before it'll come back. And yes, it has. This morning it's 94.19. We expect the dollar broadly to stay above 94. Even though it might vacillate slightly, it will continue to rise against other currencies which generally are pretty weak. Energy markets down slightly, not hugely at this stage in terms of crude oil. WTI crude down 44 cents at 83.71 and Brent crude down 5 cents at 84.73. Equity markets yesterday really a bit undecided, marginally down in the US by about 1/3 to 0.5%. Similarly, Asia Pacific down similar amounts, and Europe and Middle East and Africa and UK is marginally up, just over 0.25%, but the other bourses are down up to 0.3%. Now let's have a quick look at the economic calendar. Well, yesterday we had the NFIB Small Business Index for October coming in at 98.2, which was a disappointing figure. The Producer Price Index, though, is exactly as expectations, and real household debt for Q3 was higher than the previous period. We also picked up separately that wholesale inflation has risen to the highest level for over 10 years. Now today we have perhaps more important data coming out. We have the jobless claims, both the weekly and the continuing, but we also have the Consumer Price Index and core CPI. And whether we agree with how these figures are put together and whether they truly reflect the true inflation rate, it doesn't matter at this stage. It's what the traders will be basing their activity on, which concerns us. And market expectations for Consumer Price Index is expected to come in at 0.6% and core CPI at 0.4%. Let's see if that happens. Gold prices marginally up despite the stronger dollar, which is positive news, although it's a few dollars, $7 down from its high. And it's currently standing at $1,826, so that's up $1 over the last 24 hours. Silver, though, marginally down, 13 cents at $24.27. Now, we have support for silver at or around 24.20, and we have resistance at 24.50. And as you can see, today's high went to 24.47. But today's low went as low as 24.05. Now, below that figure, we have silver's support at 23.97, which is where the 10-day moving average rests. And we would rather rely on that figure than necessarily 24.20. Okay, that's where we're at. If we can see gold push above 1845, if it can, then that will be positive for silver. But again, as mentioned, unless something significantly comes out with the economic data today, there is little to cause both gold and silver to rise or fall that dramatically. We shall wait and see. Cryptocurrency markets down 2.8% overnight. So we still have a market cap at 2.86 trillion. Bitcoin coming off its all-time high slightly at $66,747. That's it for now. Hope you've enjoyed today. A rather picturesque strato-cumulus day, or I should say strato-cumulus, as I come from the United Kingdom. Have a great day, everyone. Please give us a thumbs up, subscribe, press the bell sign. Until next time. Illuminati silver owners come from a background of banking, international wealth management and economics. Having now retired from these worlds, we are not qualified to give investment advice. Therefore, this and other productions must not be deemed to be giving such advice and merely represent the personal views of its owners.